Hezbollah je raketirao sever Izraela i proglasio neograničenu borbu. Broj žrtava izraelskog napada na Bejrut porastao je na 45. Jesu li Liban i Izrael na ivici totalnog rata i kako bi taj sukob mogao da utiče na sveobuhvatnu situaciju na Bliskom istoku? O tome u temi jutra. U našem studiju je Nikola Marković iz Instituta za međunarodnu politiku i privredu, a iz Libana za Euronews Srbija ovog jutra govori novinar Adnan Nasser. Adnan, thank you for speaking for Euronews Serbia. And what was feared since the outbreak of the war in Gaza a year ago has happened. A new front has opened in Middle East, this time in southern Lebanon, in relation to northern Israel. Can we now expect the war to expand and involve other countries in the region?
Well, I think the war has already included many different countries in the region since day one. Let's not forget that Hezbollah had involved itself militarily the day after Hamas had attacked Israel on October 7th. Although the war that Hezbollah was waging was a limited war, we had rules of engagement that neither side had sought to violate until very recently. And let's not forget that the Houthis in Yemen, which is another group that's aligned with Hezbollah and Hamas, have been involved militarily, and they're also backed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, only a little more than a week ago had fired what they called a hypersonic missile. I think it's debatable whether it was or wasn't. Military experts will be able to answer that more effectively than I can. So the war has included multiple fronts. It's a question of scale and degree. Do we want to see all these other fronts, Lebanon, Yemen, risk looking like Gaza after almost a year of being bombarded by the Israeli military? I say we'd hope not.
Do you believe that Israel has the green light of its allies, primarily the United States, for this kind of action?
I'm not so sure if President Biden is in a position to give the green light. I think President Biden right now is looking more for a way to conclude his presidential term with a, let's not call it a peace, but a ceasefire deal that would see this war brought to a quick end. That would also give his vice president, Kamala Harris, a higher chance of winning, possibly. I think the U.S., to some degree, tacitly supports Israel's actions because it's its #1 military ally, as you alluded to. It's been supplying the Israelis with the capabilities to at least fight Hamas in Gaza for almost a year. Ultimately, I think President Biden wants to see this war concluded. He's working, he's sending his envoy, Amos Hochstein, back and forth from Israel to Lebanon consistently to come up with a land deal. So it's possible that Israel had done this undermining U.S. diplomatic efforts, but ironically also had potentially tacit support from the U.S.
Is there a danger that Lebanon itself will again slip into a civil war like the one 40 years ago, and that the reaction is threatened with a new humanitarian crisis?
No, I seriously doubt that. I mean, the Lebanese people are not interested in fighting a war with each other. I mean, there's absolutely no evidence to support that. Yes, it's true that a large portion of the Lebanese society is resentful towards Hezbollah for involving itself without a debate in parliament or within the Council of Ministers, taking this up with the defense minister. Most Lebanese who oppose Hezbollah would like to see Hezbollah play normal politics and bring its weapons into the national army and come up with a national defense strategy. Also, the civil war had started back in April of 1975. The elements that existed then don't exist now. Yes, Hezbollah is supported by Iran, which provides them the weapons, the training, everything they need to function as a military force. I mean, the leader of Hezbollah, Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, had always admitted that his group received support from Iran. But they're not a foreign force. They're Lebanese. What helped trigger the Lebanese civil war 40 years ago was the presence of Palestinian militias, which no longer exist in Lebanon, at least not to the extent they did back then.
In a year of military action in Gaza, partly also in the West Bank, Israel repeatedly received tens of billions of dollars in military aid from the Americans, and still not even all the Hamas hostages have been released. Can Israel afford a war on two or more fronts?
This is the advantage that guerrilla groups hold. I mean, whether you want to call Hamas a legitimate fighting force, I mean, according to the US and most Western countries, they're a terrorist organization. But on the ground, they do carry out guerrilla style tactics. So, smaller groups, well organized tactics with guerrilla style movements, they tend to have a home front advantage. And I think that's why Hezbollah would have an advantage if Israel were to invade South Lebanon once again. From the point of view of the Israelis, Hezbollah is a threat because they have now at least 60,000, maybe 100,000 Israelis who are living in the north that had to flee and they want them returned. But I think the best way that Israel can accomplish that and for the Lebanese to accomplish security on their front is to have a ceasefire at this very moment.